welcome to Murder Most British. I'm Zach, and I have to remember that a lorry is not a woman named Lori. It's a semi.
And I'm Rachel, the Brit, and I have to remind Zach that over here, a semi is something quite different. If you know what I mean.
Well, everybody over here is like, oh God.
Oh, the Brits know what a semi is.
Being rude again.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. Well, this week's case is one that Rach showed me and I was so on board for.
Yeah, it starts in the US back in the 1990s, but by the time it reaches the UK, things take a much darker turn.
USA. So we're importing people who are doing some bad stuff.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they didn't know about this guy once he hit the UK, not to begin with. So
yeah, it wasn't as strict back then.
Yeah,
I remember back in the day when you could go to the gate at the airport and watch people come off. You weren't even there to fly anywhere.
Yeah,
you were just
you just go and sit and watch plane watch.
Yeah, it was weird.
You have to stand outside by the fence to watch the planes take off this time.
Yeah, back then you could just show up and say, hey, as they're coming off the plane. And now you have to wait in the lobby.
Crazy.
I don't know, my mom and dad, wait at the baggage claim. We'll meet you there. Well, this has it all, really. There's crime, deception, a new identity, ginger hair dye, and a man who managed to slip through the cracks for years.
And when it all unravels, the consequences are devastating.
Well, let's get into this one. I'm excited.
Well, this is the story of David Bieber.
No relation.
Not to me.
To the Biebs.
Justin Bieber.
So the story starts with David Francis Bieber. He was born on February 3rd, 1966 in Fort Myers, Florida, to parents Frank and Sandy Bieber. His early life in a working class family was largely unremarkable, but from a young age, Bieber exhibited a restless and rebellious streak.
Bieber showed considerable athletic promise. Growing up in Fort Myers, Florida, he was a standout swimmer who set a state record for the 100-yard breaststroke at just 13 years old. His physical strength and discipline in the pool translated to success on the football field, where he played as a linebacker.
Several universities reportedly expressed interest in recruiting him for American football scholarships. I say American football just so everybody, if we say football, he's out there playing soccer, as we say.
Yeah, well, we say football over here for any game that is kicking a ball with a foot.
You kick your ball with the foot in rugby.
Okay, that's drop kick.
That's what you do to someone that's going after you. You drop kick them.
Drop kick them.
So at the time, those around him saw a young man with the talent and drive to pursue a legitimate future in competitive sports, making his later transformation into a violent fugitive all the more striking.
After high school, he briefly enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. Tenure cut short when he went AWOL. You Americans know that as absent without leave.
Yeah. As a veteran, I'm like,
obviously we have that AWOL over here as well with our military. So
that's naughty. You can't be doing that.
Well, back in the day when some of my relatives, back I think World War I, 2 times, yeah, they went AWOL. Anyway, it happens. Subsequently, though, he was discharged with less than an honourable discharge. This abrupt end to his military career foreshadowed a pattern of instability and invasion that would categorise much of his adult life.
Well, by 1986, David Bieber had returned to Fort Myers, Florida, where he immersed himself in the world of bodybuilding. This was more than physical training. It was a reinvention. As he gained size and began competing more seriously, his reliance on anabolic steroids intensified. That's perfect. But it was mirroring the norms of competitive bodybuilding circuit at the time, but the lifestyle came at a cost. And to sustain it, Bieber began selling the same steroids he was using. That choice brought him into contact with a more dangerous network of people. Oh, God. Here we go. So he's getting big. He's using steroids, possibly getting that old roid rage going, and then getting hooked up with dangerous people from selling, drugs, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether he he was probably selling more than just roids,
Possibly. But
more than likely.
the main thing about this one is he's in there pumping iron all the time and using
Yeah,
and selling.
well, he started taking roids when he was in high school.
No wonder he was so good at it.
Mm.
But I mean, back then it was just a kind of a normal thing. Even like Schwarzenegger was saying when he was doing bodybuilding and that, and they were all doing it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he admitted. He's like, yeah, we were all doing it.
Mm.
You know,
I mean,
it
it
was just
doesn't really
cycles.
surprise me.
Yeah, they would just be in cycles, and whenever they were going to go to competitions and such, they'd just be shooting steroids to get big.
Not something for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like now why they're getting like natural categories.
Mm.
Like you need to be all natural. Like there's lots of drug testing and all that, but then they want a steroid category. They want to say how big can you get?
I think I did see something like that where they want, modified, engineered bodies with using steroids and other stuff.
Yeah, but I'm thinking, isn't it a better accomplishment to do it naturally and to look natural? Because some of them guys, they just, you can tell, you're like, you can't get that way normally. That's just impossible.
I mean, in my view, I don't like the look of it. I think it's just too much, far too much.
And then they try to sell you that lie about the actors. They did this in 6 months.
Yeah.
Sure, they did.
Yeah, righty then.
They had a handy little helper there.
Anyway, shut up, you. Let's get back to this case. So, by the early 1990s, signs of instability of Bieber's personal life were becoming harder to ignore. In 1990, court records from Lee County, Florida, showed that 2 petitions for protective orders were filed against him under domestic violence statutes. One came from a woman on behalf of herself and her daughters. The other one was filed by his former girlfriend, Michelle Stanforth. Both cases were dropped, though, within weeks, with no further legal consequences, but they indicated a disturbing pattern of threatening and abusive behaviour.
Not good, not good. Within the bodybuilding scene, one of Bieber's closest associates was Markus Mueller, definitely a German, yep, German, living in Florida, who had ambitions of becoming an actor. A charismatic and outwardly friendly, Mueller had a more illicit side. He was smuggling steroids from Europe and distributing them throughout the region. Bieber became deeply embedded in Mueller's operation. Over time, tensions reportedly escalated, fueled by disputes over control of the business and eventually over Mueller's girlfriend, Danielle.
Well, the relationships within the group quickly turned toxic. Bieber began an affair with Danielle and married her on the 2nd of February 1995. Friends of both men were shocked. The overlap between personal betrayal and business rivalry added to an already volatile dynamic, and it set the stage for even more disturbing developments in the days that followed.
Oh, come on, man. I want your business and I want your woman. And then I'm going to go into a roid rage if you don't. Like, that is skanky.
The dude is just, he's wanting things and he's going to do what he can to get it, basically.
But then, like, they were only together for a couple of weeks, and he's like, let's get married.
I mean, that's the thing over in America, isn't it? Like, we don't do that over here. We're like, relationship for 2 or 3 years, then you get married. But in America, I think, oh yeah, fall in love and that's it, get married straight away.
You get into a relationship for a few years, then you get engaged for a few more years, then you get married.
Oh, is it? Is that how it worked with you?
Oh, that's the way it is over here. Goodness gracious. Well, this is
funny.
This is where things turn a bit sour.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for Markus Mueller, on February 9th, 1995, he was found shot dead in his Florida apartment, struck 3 times and laying in his doorway. His body was discovered by Danielle LaBelle, who was his ex-girlfriend and who had married Bieber just days earlier. That shocking scene instantly put Bieber on investigators' radar, but without any sort of decisive evidence, no charges were filed, and the case officially remained unresolved. Nonetheless, law enforcement kept Bieber under scrutiny as the key suspect.
By late 1995, suspicion around David Bieber was mounting, but it hadn't caught up with him yet. Then in November of that year, things escalated. Michelle Marsh, one of Bieber's former girlfriends, was taking out the trash at her home in Fort Myers when she was ambushed by gunfire. 4 or 5 shots, to be precise, fired at close range. Miraculously, though, none of them hit her. She survived, physically unharmed, but understandably shaken.
Oh, man. Thank goodness that person didn't go to the range and practice, because that's 4 or 5 shots at close range, and he still missed. There was an angel sitting on her shoulder because holy cow.
Either that or he was just a complete and utter bad shot. Never shot a gun in his life. He's just like, right, I'm just going to give it a go.
Yeah, just think I'm going to pull from the hip like a cowboy and just, like.
Jesus. I mean, she is so lucky that none hit her.
Yeah, close range, 4 or 5 shots, something should have hit.
Well, you would have thought one had at least hit, but luckily the guy's aim was crap.
Well, yeah, I think what they call is spray and pray. Thank goodness she didn't get hit, but police recovered shell casings from the scene and began piecing together the ballistic evidence. Shockingly, the weapon used in the Michelle Marsh attack matched the firearm linked to Markus Mueller's murder just 9 months earlier. And yet, without any direct proof tying Bieber to the gun or placing him at the scene, investigators hit another wall. No charges were filed, and for the second time that year, a potentially deadly attack involving someone close to Bieber remained officially unresolved.
Well, by that time, the walls were closing in. In the months that followed, 2 of Bieber's closest associates, a 17-year-old David Snipes and Bieber's former roommate, John Saladino, they came forward with testimonies that dramatically shifted the narrative. Snipes admitted to being the trigger man in both Mueller's killing and the attempt on Michelle Marsh. He claimed that Bieber had hired him to carry out the shootings in exchange for cash.
Saladino not only backed up Snipes' confession, but added another chilling layer. He alleged that Bieber had also planned a hit on the lead homicide detective investigating the case, a desperate attempt to derail the investigations that were closing in around him. That's pretty ballsy.
I mean,
putting a hit out on a cop, that's a big, big, big no-no.
Yeah, I mean, how in the hell he would have thought that he would get away with that? Cop killers, they are seriously on it. They will investigate that like a dog with a bone,
Oh, yeah, they will never let that go. And But then they would just go, what was this detective working on?
Exactly. They'll look at his cases.
Yeah, they'll be like, oh, this is what they were working on.
It's a bit like judges, isn't it? Like if a judge is on a case and they start getting threats and stuff, anonymous threats, then obviously they look at the cases that they are dealing with. It's the same with the police. Well, authorities took their word seriously. Snipes was sentenced to death for the Mueller murder, though the sentence later commuted to life imprisonment. Saladino struck a deal and received 15 years behind bars. Their stories left little doubt as to who had orchestrated the violence.
Well, old David Bieber, he knew that the time was running out, and one murder and one attempted murder tied to his inner circle that he hired someone to do. 2 known associates turning on him, police investigations starting to connect all these dots together. Whether or not charges were filed yet, the writing was on the wall. The Florida authorities hadn't made their move yet, but Bieber didn't wait around for them to do so.
Well, no, that year he made a bold and calculated decision to disappear. Bieber had assumed the identity of Nathan Wayne Coleman, an American infant who had died shortly after birth in 1975. It was a textbook case of identity theft. Using public records, Bieber acquired Coleman's birth certificate and used it to forge a new life. With this alias, he obtained a legitimate US passport, complete with photo and clean criminal history. In one move, he slipped behind a new identity, leaving the name David Bieber behind.
Oh, goodness. Well, to me, I think it shows that he's not stupid. He's not an idiot, like just some muscle-bound caveman. He's got some smarts.
Yeah.
You can't just do all that willy-nilly. You really need to think about things and know how to get all these things together to make an identity.
Yeah. I mean, what did he do? Walk around a graveyard, you know what I mean? Just picked out a name and then went to, what would you do? Order a birth certificate, go down to...
I don't know, but you pretty much have to, well, you could do a lot of things through the mail back then as well. You just say, oh, I'm this guy.
Yeah.
I lost my social security number, and okay, they'll send you out a new one. The bureaucracy, they'll just assume possibly, as long as you have all the birth date and everything.
Yeah, I presume, with because it's only getting a birth certificate, isn't it? So you could just ask for a copy. It's not like they're going to be like something flagging up saying, well, hang on a minute, why do you need this birth certificate? Because this person's dead, So, yeah, I think probably sounds quite easy actually to do back then.
Yeah, you'd get the birth certificate, alter it, and then just say, oh, I need my stuff.
I mean, I don't think you'd be able to do that now because obviously the systems, it would show that this person's deceased. You cannot get a passport,
It's all digitized.
Yeah, exactly.
And stuff. You'd have to be able to hack into computer systems to change things. But back then, all paper.
Yeah.
Really?
Sounds quite a real simple thing to do back then.
And also, I think, in the 90s, they're transitioning between computers or paper and computers.
Yeah.
It's all kind of backed up, especially government bureaucracy is good God.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Well, goodness. Well, on September 26, 1996, traveling under his new identity, he arrived in the United Kingdom, landing at Ramsgate in Kent. The British Home Office granted him a 6-month visa, unaware of the manhunt forming back in Florida. Bieber blended in easily. His muscular frame and confident persona gave no hint of violence left behind. For the moment, at least, he had pulled it off. A clean slate, a new country, and a second chance.
Well, the UK of the mid-1990s, my favourite decade, offered fertile ground for someone like David to reinvent himself. Immigration controls were less digitised and far less coordinated across borders than they are today, like we were saying before. There was no unified database to cross-reference identity records. There was no biometric scans at every checkpoint. And at the time, the legal framework wasn't fully equipped to detect false identities constructed from authentic but misused documents.
His first few months, he moved quietly through England. In March 1997, just before his visa was set to expire, he married Denise Horsley in Cumbria. The marriage granted him legal grounds to remain in the UK long term. While this relationship eventually ended in divorce in 2002, the arrangement had already served its purpose. Bieber remained in Britain under the Coleman alias and gradually settled into a new routine. Sham marriage.
I think you've probably just done that in order to, because obviously we'd have got the marriage visa instead. That's what it must have done, was come off the travel tourist visa and then, married this poor girl that thought he was in love with her. And then, got the 2-year marriage visa.
Yep. He was just like, I need this. I don't care who it is.
Yeah, I'd keep extending his stay.
Yep. Just kept her sweet until he got what he needed.
Mm.
And then obviously he's probably still bodybuilding, probably gotten his hands on roids again.
Yeah.
Probably, violent, unfortunately. But thankfully she got away from him.
Yeah. Well, by the early 2000s, he was living in Yorkshire and working as a nightclub doorman. We would call them bouncers over here. A role that suited both his physique and its desire to stay under the radar.
We call them bouncers too.
Do you?
Yeah. I hear more on TV and that where you guys call him doorman. He's a doorman.
Not back in the 90s. They were just all bouncers.
He's the muscle doorman.
Well, it gave little way about his past. To those around him, he was just another quiet American expat. But behind the silence was a man who had crossed an ocean to avoid his past and who was doing everything he could to keep it buried.
Bieber's life in Leeds carried a distinct air of evasion. Neighbors reported a man who dressed almost exclusively in dark clothing, often sat with the curtains drawn and lights on even during daylight hours. That's just goths. They don't keep the lights on, though. Dark
teenagers. Any teenager.
The emos and that, yeah. Sitting in the Curtains drawn, dark clothes. Well, multiple sources confirm that he dyed his hair frequently and moved house regularly, typically staying for weeks rather than months. His former wife, Denise, also observed that he seemed to live perpetually out of a suitcase and paid weekly rent rather than settle into a long-term lodging.
Well, by late 2003, Bieber's lifestyle hinted at deeper layers of concealment. His movements had grown more sporadic, and he no longer seemed anchored to a regular pattern. That summer, he legally purchased a bullet reloading press and around 1,000 empty cartridge cases from a gun shop in Hertfordshire. Items technically legal at the time, but deeply unusual in the context of his background. Around the same period, his Mitsubishi Pajero was displaying stolen number plates that quietly entered police databases without triggering any direct investigation. His choices suggested a man preparing for circumstances far outside of the norm.
I think from my perspective, because he was a Marine, he was like 18 months. You're still going to get that preparedness, and he's in this state of readiness at all times. So he's like preparing for something. He's like, I got to be prepared if they come for me, that type of thing.
Yeah, it just sounds like he's trying to just keep on the move. If you stop, you're going to get caught. It seems like his attitude is. So, the constant moving, he's going to kind of mentally feel like that he's always one step ahead of being caught.
True. Did you ever ride in a Mitsubishi Pajero?
I think my aunt, actually, she had a Mitsubishi Shogun, and somebody else I know had a nice one. It was nice. The Shoguns were nice.
I had never heard of a Pajero before.
Yeah, so the Pajero is what my aunt had, and they were the big, like, 4x4. They looked like boats on wheels, basically. But the Shoguns, they were a little bit more compact and sporty looking. So their ones are the better ones than the Pajeros.
Well, he also began renting a private storage unit on the outskirts of Leeds, paying in cash and rarely visiting during business hours. Inside there was a trove of weapons, ammunition, forged documents, and personal effects, all carefully concealed. At this point, the unit had been maintained for just over 2 years without attracting any attention. It was, in essence, his fallback, a stalked, silent outpost primed for escape or resistance.
Well, the final weeks of 2003 saw Bieber drifting further into isolation. Former acquaintances later described him as increasingly withdrawn and difficult to reach. His routines became erratic, his gym attendance tapered off. He moved addresses yet again, this time to a modest flat on the edge of Leeds.
Well, what came next would end his anonymity for good. On the afternoon of December 26, 2003, Boxing Day, West Yorkshire police officers spotted a black BMW on Dib Lane in Leeds displaying false license plates. The vehicle's stolen registration had triggered alerts in police systems, prompting PC's Ian Broadhurst and Neil Roper, both on routine patrol at the time, to stop the vehicle for further investigation.
As the officers approached, the driver remained calm and cooperative, even engaging in casual conversation with the police. Eyewitnesses recalled his composed demeanour, which belied the danger beneath. Backup arrived. PC Banks began assisting the other officers. After getting Bieber to exit the vehicle, PC Roper went to handcuff Bieber, but suddenly Bieber drew a 9mm handgun and opened fire. The officers tried to flee for cover. PC Neil Roper was shot twice, once in the shoulder and once in the abdomen, but he was luckily able to get away.
PC Ian Broadhurst was shot once in the back and became immobilized. He is heard pleading desperately, quote, No, please don't shoot. Bieber then delivered the fatal shot to the officer's head. As police moved in to secure the scene and pursue the suspect, Bieber opened fire again. PC James Bank narrowly escaped injury when a bullet struck his radio harness. Bieber immediately fled on foot into the nearby residential streets, disappearing into the maze of houses and backyards. He then, not far away, stole a vehicle. And then an urgent manhunt was launched within minutes, deploying armed officers, K9 units, and helicopters.
Initial descriptions released to the public highlighted Bieber's sudden and unexpected violence following an apparently cooperative encounter, raising pressing questions about his motives and background. The public reacted with shock and grief, while West Yorkshire Chief Constable condemned the act as an appalling act of violence against a dedicated officer.
It's very sad. Like you said before, when we were doing this up, he was only 34.
Yeah, husband. I don't think he had any children, but yeah, he was a husband, obviously a son. It's just for all of the police involved. You know, they were just on a routine.
On Boxing Day, just a quiet.
Yeah.
Nobody's like, you look outside on Boxing Day, nobody's driving around really.
No. I mean, other than, you got people sort of cheering and having a laugh in a pub.
Yeah.
You know, most people over Christmas are in the houses.
Yeah.
You know,
hungover from Christmas.
Exactly. Stuffed from Boxing Day dinner.
And these guys are just, probably out just.
Didn't think anything would, any serious sort of crimes to deal with, just a routine patrol, making sure everything's still quiet.
Yeah, awful.
Horrific.
Absolutely awful. Yeah, little angel was on that guy's shoulder.
Yeah.
It hit his harness, like, oh my goodness. But yeah, police conducted extensive searches across Leeds and the surrounding areas, but the suspect remained elusive. The murder drew intense national media attention and sparked urgent discussions about officer safety during routine stops, as well as protocols for handling potential armed suspects in West Yorkshire. And like you said earlier to me, before it was 8 years.
Yeah, it was 8 years. This was the first police officer shooting or death in 8 years prior. So, there was a good 8 years of no British officers being shot and killed.
Awful.
And then, yeah.
Some roided out American had to come and just cause absolute carnage.
I mean, they didn't obviously know that he had a background and was on the run.
I think that he was just shady.
Mm.
He had a clean record. He had a clean identity. Why all this craziness? You could have just been quiet. Like I read about that. There was a guy that he'd been driving for 50 years without a license.
I'm talking about license. They're changing that. Apparently, it's not a criminal offence now, or come 2026. It's not going to be a criminal offence to drive without a license. It'll be a civil offence and you'll get a fine.
That's insane.
Well, further investigation revealed Bieber's efforts to maintain a low profile in the weeks leading up to the shooting. He frequently changed residence, used false vehicle registrations. It complicated police efforts to track him.
By December 27, 2003, Bieber had traveled by taxi to Bradford, apparently attempting to avoid major transportation hubs and delay capture. Surveillance footage and witness reports helped narrow down his location.
Reviewing CCTV footage across Leeds, investigators tracked the car's movements in the days leading up to the shooting. The search rapidly escalated into one of the largest operations in the force's history.
Oh yeah, just like we said before about the detective and that you do something like that to cops, I mean, anybody gets murdered, you should go after them.
Oh, of course. I think, the police would do that. For any murder, they take it, at 100 miles an hour, try to track down who's done it. But I think when it comes to one of their own,
it's a very human instinct that that's your brother or sister that was murdered.
Yeah, it's like they are like family to them. So it's like us looking for someone that's killed one of our family members. We would be out there non-stop, 24/7.
Well, by December 28th, police had identified the driver as Nathan Wayne Coleman. Cross-checking immigration and U.S. death records revealed that Coleman was a deceased American infant, confirming the identity was fraudulent. They're like, okay, here's another piece to the puzzle. Who is this guy really? Well, authorities notified Interpol and U.S. agencies, recognizing that Coleman held no valid visa or legal status. Further investigation linked Coleman to his real name. And then they found out he was a fugitive wanted in Florida for firearms offenses and suspected contract killings. That must have been such a surprise.
Well, yeah.
Jeez, this guy's a fucking maniac.
I mean, it probably gives a little bit background as to why he reacted the way he did when he got pulled over by the police in England.
Yeah.
it probably sort of helped them to actually understand that this guy was on the run. You know, he ain't going to be wanting us to take him down the police station and actually figure out there and then who he is.
And he was planning. He said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I've got this stash of guns and all that in this, self-storage unit. If they get me, I'm going to shoot them, run, get to self-storage, or whatever.
Well, it's one of those whatever it takes to get away, isn't it? You know, he's in survival mode of trying to stay evading the police.
Yeah. And I think some of that Marine training is helping him out. Like, 'cause they, if you're behind enemy lines or, they teach evade, capture, survival, all that to get away from whoever's pursuing you. Yeah. So he's got that a little bit of a leg up than just a normal Joe.
I'd be like, oh my God, I don't know what do I do? Where do I go? What do I do? Like, I don't have a clue. I'd end up being caught within about half hour.
Yeah, you just go home.
My safe place.
Yeah. You just go home and be like, okay, I'm done now. Come get me.
No, I wouldn't do it in the first place. On the December 31st, police executed a raid on a Leeds self-storage unit that was rented in Bieber's name. Inside, they found a cache of weapons. So there was the 9mm Glock pistol, ammunition, bullet reloading press that he bought, all stored together, demonstrating advanced preparation. Forensic experts matched residue and shell casings to the ammunition found at the crime scene.
Well, the Glock that he had but he had many more. They'd been modified to operate covertly. The presence of fingerprints and traces consistent with police evidence showed Bieber's direct involvement and premeditation. Simultaneously, surveillance operations broadened across Leeds and surrounding Yorkshire. Police brought in intelligence from informants, mobile phone tracking data, and travel logs to map Bieber's associated network and likely hideouts.
Well, investigators discovered deliberate attempts to conceal Bieber's identity and movement. Files showed a use of multiple false vehicle registrations, regular relocations between flats, and even hair dyeing. He's dyed his hair so many times, but I think the colour that he shouldn't have chose really was ginger. But yeah, it was a tactic captured on CCTV, suggesting deliberate evasion of recognition. These pieces combined painted a picture of a fugitive trained to avoid detection.
No offense to gingers. I love you all, but I'm not sure that is exactly the color that you want to go. A bright color. Go black.
Well, ginger, I mean, it's a standout colour, isn't it? If you want to sort of hide away, you're not going to do like bright ginger, to be fair. You just want a boring, mundane brown or something. Like, I don't know.
Something covert, something that's low key. I'm not dyeing my hair bright purple or something, but a bright ginger.
I mean, orange. I mean, he's supposed to have had some marine background. I mean, what was he thinking? How's that going to camouflage him? Surely, maybe even green would have been better, so he could just go and hide out in some field where some trees are, I don't know. Silly guy.
He's going to camouflage with the green trees. You can't see me. My God.
Well, it'd be better than orange.
Yeah. I mean, I see in the mug photo of him, but we'll get to that. All these strands, identity, fraud, weapons acquisition, forensic evidence, and intelligence aligned. On December 31st, 2003, after days of high alert, armed officers arrested David Bieber at the Royal Hotel in Gateshead at approximately 2:25 a.m. He was found in his room with a loaded pistol under his bed, later identified as the one used in the shooting of PC Broadhurst.
Well, at the time of the arrest, Bieber, with his dyed ginger hair, an apparent attempt to disguise his appearance, during early police interviews, he falsely claimed that a ginger-haired friend had borrowed his BMW and was responsible for the shootings.
It was the other ginger. That was his defense. It was the other ginger, man, not me. What are you talking about? Come on, man. Roper and Banks saw you. They could point at you and say, yep, this is the one that killed our brother.
Yep.
What an idiot. I bigged him up a little bit. I shouldn't have said he's intelligent with all that identity theft, but what an idiot.
Not when it comes to giving excuses to why he's going around shooting police officers and murdering one. Oh, it wasn't me, it was my ginger friend. He's got the same colour hair as me. It was him. He had my car. Like, seriously? What an idiot. Who's going to buy that?
Yeah, come on. David Bieber's trial began in November of 2004 at Newcastle Crown Court, where he faced charges of murder, attempted murder, and possession of a firearm with intent to endanger life. The courtroom operated under heightened security, with Bieber escorted by armed officers and placed under constant guard. Given the nature of the charges, particularly the murder of a police officer, the trial attracted extensive national media attention.
Well, the prosecution, led by Richard Henriques QC, structured their case around physical evidence, CCTV footage, and expert forensic testimony. According to ballistics experts from the Forensic Science Service, the bullet that killed PC Broadhurst was consistent with the ammunition and firing characteristics of the Glock that was found under Bieber's hotel bed following his arrest in Gateshead. Forensic testimony also revealed that Bieber's DNA was found on the trigger of the Glock used in the murder.
While earlier sections had outlined the events of Dib Lane, the trial introduced more forensic details and then different interpretations. Testimony confirmed that Broadhurst was shot at extremely close range, suggesting the officer had no time to react. Gunshot residue was found on Bieber's jacket, and DNA evidence linked him to the hotel room and the weapon. The Glock had also been deliberately altered. Its serial number had been filed off.
CCTV evidence played a pivotal role. Jurors were shown footage of placing Bieber within hundreds of metres of Dib Lane shortly before the shooting. Another camera had captured him entering the Royal Hotel in Gateshead less than 24 hours later, where he'd checked in under a false name. Prosecutors argued of his efforts to avoid detection. When arrested there at the hotel on December 31st, police found the Glock pistol loaded and hidden under his bed, alongside a stash of cash and fake identification documents.
So he was ready to go. He was like, yep, I got all this. I got cash, identities, everything. I'm ready to go. But he also had a round in the chamber. So he was ready.
Yeah, I mean, probably was contemplating the fact of why fire myself out of this, But then where would he go? How would he? He's going to be 100% knowing that there's like a countrywide manhunt for this guy.
Yeah, at every port would have his face. But the prosecution also presented evidence from Bieber's time in prison. A prison officer testified that Bieber had exhibited manipulative and calculating behavior, including making cryptic remarks about how long it would take him to escape. While not central to the murder charge, this supported the prosecution's portrayal of a man capable of calculated violence and deception.
In addition to the forensic and digital evidence, the jury heard from officers and civilian witnesses who described Bieber's composure before and after the shooting. PC Neil Roper, who survived being shot twice, testified in person, describing how Bieber had made no verbal threats or warnings. He simply opened fire without provocation. His account was consistent with forensic conclusions that Bieber had fired with clear intent to kill, not to escape or in panic.
The defense sought to challenge the strength of the ballistic evidence and cast doubt on Bieber's intent. They suggested that the shooting may have occurred in confusion or panic rather than as a premeditated act. However, the forensic testimony undermined this argument. The prosecution emphasized that the weapon was in good working condition and had been deliberately concealed, supporting their case that the shooting was intentional rather than impulsive. Bieber offered no testimony of his own. The jury was left to weigh the evidence without hearing his version of the events directly. Bieber declined to give evidence, invoking his right to remain silent. The jury was instructed not to interpret this as an admission of guilt, but the prosecution emphasized his silence alongside his earlier use of false identities as evidence of guilt and evasion, which I would be like we said with Hazel Stewart, when you don't show emotion and all that. But if you don't go tell your story,
yeah,
you don't go testify and say, no, this is I'm defending myself, but that could also backfire.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you are innocent, you would testify.
Yeah.
if you've got nothing to hide, people can tell when you're lying. So, if you're not lying, take the stand.
Yeah. Like I said, you killed my friend or whatever, and you'd get upset. You'd be like, no, I effing didn't.
Yep.
You'd be like, you'd get animated. You'd be like, I would do no such a thing. What do you talk, but if you're just like, no, I
Well, there
didn't.
would be that emotion there, because you'd be so upset about, if your friend had been killed, you wouldn't be able to hide that emotion, and body language, would show that there's no way that you would have done that. So, yeah, I think if you're innocent, take the stand.
And I think the prosecution would have ripped him apart.
But then, like I said, if you're not lying, as much trying to rip you apart, it just wouldn't happen. Following nearly 3 weeks of detailed testimony, closing arguments were delivered. The prosecution reiterated that the murder of PC Ian Broadhurst had been a deliberate, calculated act committed with a modified firearm during a police stop. Prosecutor Richard Henriques, QC, described Bieber as, quote, a ruthless individual who intended to kill, citing the Glock's illegal configuration and Bieber's use of false identities as part of a pattern of deception and premeditation. He urged the jury to consider not just the killing, but the lengths Bieber went to avoid accountability.
Defense asked the jury to consider the possibility that the shooting was not pre-planned. They suggested Bieber could have panicked when confronted by police officers, acting impulsively. However, they stopped short of offering an alternative account of what occurred. Bieber's refusal to testify or provide any explanation left the defense without a strong counter-narrative. The jury was left to weigh the forensic certainty of the prosecution's case against the speculative doubt posed by the defense.
After just over 3 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a unanimous guilty verdicts on all counts: murder of PC Ian Broadhurst, attempted murder of PC's Neil Roper and James Banks, and a possession of a firearm with an intent to endanger life.
Bieber was sentenced in December of 2004 at Newcastle Crown Court. Mr. Justice Moses imposed a life sentence with a whole life order, meaning Bieber would never be eligible for parole. In his sentencing remarks, Justice Moses said, quote, "You murdered a police officer who was doing no more than his duty. The sentence I pass is one from which you will never be released." He added that the use of a firearm that was modified were, aggravating factors and that showed intent to kill, not merely to escape.
Well, the whole life order placed Bieber among a small number of prisoners in the UK sentenced to spend the rest of their lives in prison with no prospect of release. At the time, such sentences were rarely issued and reserved for only the most egregious cases, such as a serial murderer or the killing of a police officer in the line of duty.
The emotional toll of the trial was profound. The courtroom heard victim impact statements from PC Broadhurst's family, describing him as a dedicated husband, son, and officer who had been killed a day after Christmas. His widow, Joanne Broadhurst, gave a written statement expressing her grief, describing the loss as immeasurable and condemning Bieber's silence as an additional cruelty.
Yeah, at age just 34, I mean, it's just so horrific. He still had a long life ahead of him.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just such a needless thing.
Yeah.
It was just so needless.
Very, very sad situation. Well, David Bieber was incarcerated at HMP Full Sutton, a high-security prison in Yorkshire known for holding some of the most dangerous offenders in the UK. During his time there, Bieber was involved in a serious escape attempt. In 2007, reports indicated that he was part of a planned breakout from Full Sutton alongside 2 other inmates, though the attempt was thwarted before it succeeded.
Following this, Bieber was transferred by helicopter to HMP Belmarsh in London, a Category A prison often used for high-risk prisoners and those requiring strict security measures. At a later date, Bieber was moved to HMP Long Lartin in Worcestershire. Ooh, I got it right that first time, baby. The reasons for this transfer have not been publicly disclosed, but Long Lartin is another maximum security facility housing high-risk prisoners.
Well, on August the 10th, 2017, Bieber launched a violent attack on a prison officer, Alison Smith, inside Long Lartin. Bieber used a homemade pronged iron bar and launched a frenzied attack targeting Officer Smith's face and neck. She managed to defend herself, suffering cuts to her mouth and chin and 4 wounds to her right arm. The attack was both sudden and ferocious and was described in court as pre-planned. Other officers rushed to the scene and managed to pull Bieber away, likely preventing a fatal outcome.
Still a monster. Still a monster and just attacking people and premeditated.
Yeah, he definitely planned this.
The assault had long-lasting psychological effects. In a victim impact statement read to the court in a subsequent hearing, Smith said she had been left with severe anxiety and depression and was forced to leave her job, the one that she loved doing. She described the mental and emotional toll as life-altering, stating that she had been diagnosed with PTSD and continued to suffer from panic attacks and sleep disturbances months after the attack.
His excuse was that he wanted to go back to Belmarsh because his pain meds were cut. Bieber was charged with attempted murder and assault causing grievous bodily harm. After several delays, he pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of assault occasioning actual bodily harm, ABH. The court accepted the plea, and Bieber was given a minimum of 6-year term to run consecutively with his existing sentence.
Following the attack, Bieber was subjected to even more restrictive conditions. He was placed in a segregated, highly surveillanced unit and subjected to limited association with other inmates. This unit was reserved for the most dangerous offenders or those presenting a serious risk to staff safety. Prison officials also conducted a review of how Bieber had obtained materials to improvise the pronged bar and whether security procedures at Long Lartin needed revision.
He was then transferred in 2022 to HMP Wakefield in West Yorkshire, also known as Monster Mansion, where he still is as of 2025. He is being held in a vulnerable prisoner unit due to receiving death threats, a status reinforced by his violent history and the 2017 attack.
Monster Mansion. That's crazy.
Full of monsters.
Yeah, definitely. That's a crazy name. But when you have to house some of the most violent people, there you go. That's the kind of name you're going to get. So on that note, let's move back a bit. Following his conviction in 2005, Bieber was sentenced to the whole life term. Well, in 2008, the Court of Appeals reviewed Bieber's sentence. The judge acknowledged the seriousness of the offense, but concluded that the whole life term was inappropriate given current sentencing principles.
Well, the court replaced it with a life sentence with a minimum tariff of 37 years. Add his 6-year term from the attack in 2017, meaning Bieber would not be eligible for parole until 2047, when he would be around 81 years old. The ruling emphasised that while Bieber's actions were grave, whole life orders were to be reserved for more extreme cases or multiple murders. The minimum term set by the court still reflected the planning, brutality, and wider impact of the crime.
Well, then Bieber's legal challenges did not end there. In the years that followed, his case was indirectly affected by broader legal debates around the compatibility of whole life tariffs within the European human rights laws. In 2013, the European Court of Human Rights ruled that Vinter and others versus United Kingdom that a whole life sentences without the possibility of review violated Article 3 of the European Convention on Human Rights. Although this decision did not directly alter Bieber's case, since his sentence had already been reduced, it did set a legal context that would be referenced in similar appeals across the UK.
In March 2022, David Bieber launched a fresh appeal, this time against his original conviction. He argued that procedural irregularities had made the trial unfair and raised doubts about the reliability of certain evidence presented at Newcastle Crown Court. However, the Court of Appeal found no merit in his arguments and upheld the conviction. The panel concluded that Bieber had received a fair trial and that the evidence presented, particularly the forensic and eyewitness material, had been handled appropriately and lawfully.
In a separate legal effort, Bieber also attempted to challenge a deportation order, anticipating that he would eventually be removed to the United States if ever granted parole. While he remains far from eligible for release, the legal challenge reflects his ongoing attempts to shape the conditions of his future incarceration. the outcome of this challenge remains unresolved. He doesn't want to go back to Florida.
Well, no,
when he gets
but I
out.
mean, at the end of the day, if he's still alive by the time he does leave UK jail, he will be, extradited back there. Do they still have the death penalty in Florida?
Oh, yeah.
I don't, but then over here, I actually read that if a criminal is in our prison, we don't allow them to go back where there is a death penalty. So the death penalty would be off the table for him, but he would, because otherwise the UK will not send him back.
Oh, yeah. So then they would just send him back for life in prison.
Yeah, that would be the agreement between obviously UK allowing the expedite back to America. Otherwise, they won't
allow it.
Human rights, our country's like gone crazy on human rights.
Well, I understand where they're coming from. It's like different views on things, and like you've abolished the death penalty and you don't think it's right, and you shouldn't then be able to send someone that that's going to be executed
but
by your own morals.
He's not a British citizen. So at the end of the day, it is Florida's citizen that it should be, in my view, it shouldn't matter. They should take him over there, and if there is
take him back. Take your trash back. Sorry, rubbish.
I mean, if he's a dual citizen, but clearly he's not.
Yeah, I think he only had settled status.
Well, he probably didn't even have that. He married the woman, obviously, for a marriage visa. So he would have been on a marriage visa. But
then he would have got the indefinite leave probably at some point.
What, applied while he was in prison?
No, because he divorced her in 2002. But they got married in 1997. So that's a couple of years to then you get indefinite leave. And then they got divorced.
Still, he's an American citizen. You should have him back and,
to take their trash back to America. America. Wow. Goodness gracious. That was a wild
So now we've
ride.
got this guy rotting in a UK jail for killing one of our officers and hurting a load of others.
Yeah.
Not good.
Just a trail of carnage, It's crazy. He had such high hopes for him when he was young and doing good in sports, and that could have got a scholarship. And
by all accounts, it sounds like that, he was an all Florida guy, do you know what I mean? And had a great life ahead of him had he have not hit the roids.
It's the roid rage that got him.
Yep. Don't do roids, guys. I wonder if he's still got ginger hair. He's dyed it in prison.
I'm sorry, my opinion, that'd be funny.
I wonder if we could find out. Anyone know if he's got ginger hair still? We'll have to pen pal him, find out. Hey, you still got ginger hair?
HMP Monster Mansion. Anyways, that was the fugitive killer, David Bieber. If this story moved you, unsettled you, or raised questions, we want to hear from you.
Please follow us and give us a like, a comment, and while you're at it, give us a 5-star. It helps with others to find us with the whole algorithm. Anyway, find us at Murder Most British on Instagram and TikTok, and MMB Podcast on Facebook.
We also have a link tree at somewhere, possibly down in the description below. So, until next week, stay safe and stay curious.